Okay, over the next 30 minutes, I wanted to run through some thoughts, opinions, ideas from the work that I've been doing in the whole branding and marketing field. So it's quite a lot to pack in. What I hope that you'll get out of it are some ideas that you can take back and use within your business. If you have any questions or if you want to discuss anything further, that's why I'm here. So afterwards, please feel free to chat to me here or at our stand downstairs. Importantly, if you've not put your business card into my little box here, please drop your card here in, because we're planning to offer a 3-hour brand workshop, and we're going to pick somebody at the end of the day. So you've got a good chance of winning. So please take up that opportunity. Okay, we're going to be talking about branding and marketing, but first, I think it's important to put the economic situation that we found ourselves in into context. I think everybody realizes that the last 2 years have been pretty tough. And back in 2009, when we were starting to see changes in the way that companies were thinking about doing business, whether that was marketing or otherwise, Rob Fife was quoted in the Herald saying, "Changing climate calls for courage." I think we've all had to be really tenacious and think about business in a different way to succeed over the last couple of years. And that certainly hasn't changed in today's market. It's still tough out there, but there are some real opportunities. And as a branding and marketing company, we're seeing people thinking about brand much more strongly than they had in the past. It used to be just looking at campaigns and tactical marketing. Now people are stepping back and going, okay, what is this thing, this brand thing? How do we use that as part of the tools in our armory for going out to the market? So there's basically been a lot more talk about brand in the marketplace. Interesting, there's a whole other conversation about what's happened in the wine sector with the proliferation of small vineyards, the flooding of the market internationally with New Zealand wines and how that's impacted on the average price per bottle. And we've all benefited, frankly, because what's happened is that the exporters have basically stopped because that had been penalising the price point overseas, and we've all benefited from that glut of wine, and I'm still enjoying that, particularly from the South Island and the Pinot, which is my favourite. So wine hangover, again, was the headline in the Herald in May 2009. And the quote here was, ultimately, strong brands and the quality in the bottle would dictate the future for those brands. So it's not just about the personality and the persona of the brand. Obviously, it's the product and the service that sits behind it. But there's just this resurgence of focus on this thing called brand. Even APN, same period. It was just happened to be around this time when things were really getting tough. Tough times don't last, tough brands do. My background is with a large corporate branding agency out of San Francisco and Europe, and we used to do a study on brand asset valuation, and there is clear empirical evidence that the stronger the brand in terms of measurement across about 60 different criteria, the more successful it is when you look at the quoted value of that company in the market. So even for small companies, owner-operators and startups, thinking about brand at the beginning and putting brand first really helps to add value to the business. There's a couple of absolute prerequisites. The first thing is you can't fatten a pig on market day. So this is all about planning. You need to step back and understand where your brand and marketing sits within your overall strategy and plan forward. Okay, a lot of people come to us and are talking tactics, and we kind of stop them and go, no, you have to stop, step back and understand where does the brand and marketing fit within the bigger picture. And the second truth is that you can't just rely on the gloss. With my gorilla here, you put the lipstick on the gorilla, but it's still behind it, it's a gorilla. There has to be some substance behind how you think about your business from a brand and marketing perspective. It really has to make sense and it has to connect with the audience. I think an example of not thinking about how the campaign would connect with the brand and the audience, was what happened with the Rugby World Cup and the whole abstain marketing that was done about basically not having sex in the run-up to the Rugby World Cup in order to support the team. It just missed the point from a telecom perspective about, well, how does that fit with telecom and the brand and the positioning of the brand in the marketplace? Totally missed it, and as we know, was a complete disaster for telecom and the ad agency that put that together. The other thing which I've been saying for a while, if any of you follow my blog or have heard me speak before, is that traditional advertising is dead. Okay, so we all have our iSky or my Sky. We're watching streaming TV. We're just flicking through ads. We're not watching the traditional adverts on the TV anymore. Or even if they're there, we're ignoring them. We're bombarded with messages, and we'll talk about this a bit later. But the old way of advertising and marketing is dead. They are not the best ways to engage with your customers. So it's about thinking in a different way. How can you engage with your customer in ways that are more engaging for them? The way that they want to engage, rather than you interrupting them either through the radio or the TV. People are choosing consumers are choosing how they interact with you. And you need to have that very much at the focus of your mind as you're planning your marketing. So the quote here, if you talk to people the way advertising talk to people, they punch you in the face. I hate a lot of the ads that just shout. You know, they're shouting an offer, an offer, an offer. Just noise. Just don't tell me that. It's not going to make me want to engage with your product or your service. So what we're going to do is walk through what I call the 10 tips to thrive. There's some stuff that's quite basic, but I find that a lot of companies haven't thought about it. So I apologise if there are some things in here that you already know, have already thought about. But in my experience, a lot of these are forgotten. And then basically we're going to walk through these over the next 20 minutes or so. So starting with the basics, just to help make sure everybody's on the same page, what is this thing that we call a brand? So for me, it's about an emotional bond. It's a feeling that you have when you shut your eyes and you think about a brand. It could be Disney, it could be Nike, it could be CoverGirl, it could be whatever brand you've got in your head. What are the images and the expectations that you have about that brand? Same can apply for your lawyer, your car mechanic. These are all brands. Now, how do you think about your bank manager? You know, ASB are doing such a strong job in trying to make people think about banking from a different perspective and engage with the customer through their web and TV advertising. But when you go to the bank, is the experience really any different? I mean, I'm an ASB customer and it doesn't do it for me, to be honest. But it is about how you feel about the product or service. So you've got anything from brand Beckham up to Disney. It's that feeling that you have about the brand. Last year I was lucky enough to go to a breakfast function where Russell Creedy, who's the CEO of Restaurant Brands in New Zealand, was talking. And it was fascinating because here we're talking about KFC and Pizza Hut, these fast food brands. And he described the marketplace that we're in as having consumer power on steroids. The power base has switched from the marketer and the brand owner to the consumer. They're the ones that are driving the thinking and decisions and communication. But are we working with them, or are we still working against them? His goal, or the goal for Restaurant Brands, is to deliver an overall brand experience so good you want to tell your friends and repeat the experience, hopefully sooner rather than later. In other words, he wants to get you back in the store. I think what's interesting about this quote is the idea of an overall brand experience. It's like a journey. The interaction that your customers, whether it's a product or a service, has with your brand starts long before they've actually touched or experienced it. It's all the things that lead up to it. Then it's the actual physical experience of working with you or using your product. And then it's all the things that happen afterwards. And you have to look at the whole cycle of that journey and look to try and manage or influence the different steps. The other point about this quote is you want to tell your friends. We're in the world of social media, and I still blow a little hot and cold about how social media works from a business-to-business context, and I'm happy to have a chat with anybody about that separately. But there is no doubt that it's not about what we as brand owners say about our products or services, it's what our customers say or their peers or people that have interacted with the brand. So I think this is a great idea in terms of a vision that can frankly apply to any business. It's well thought through. So if the brand is about a feeling or an experience, we need to look at it as a promise. So it's a promise which sets an expectation in the mind. What do I expect to get from this brand? And if we can deliver that time after time, that's going to build trust. So it needs to be a credible, can we believe it? It needs to be credible, and it needs to be sustainable. Again, in recent years, one of the most interesting case studies around this idea was what happened with Ribena. Is everybody familiar with the Ribena story? Basically, the CEO, in effect, lied about, I think it was the sugar content in vitamin C, and a couple of schoolgirls did the school experiment and proved him to be wrong. He was basically on his knees on the TV saying, we don't do that anymore, we're honest, trust us. Once you've made a big mistake like that, it's very difficult to get back. Very difficult. No, I wouldn't. And we run a risk with Brand New Zealand. To be honest, as a Brit coming to New Zealand 8 years ago, the whole clean green image is put out there, and we all know, living in New Zealand, that it's not totally true. Okay, there's some good and there's some bad. But the whole persona and perception of Brand New Zealand out to the marketplace is such a high positioning that we tend to get shot down in the international press. And a friend of mine, when there was the Tauranga, what was the boat that sank? The Rena. I had a number of emails from friends in Europe saying, oh, we've seen the oily penguins on the TV. Is everything all right in New Zealand? And it's like, how do you align that brand expectation with the experience that people are seeing? Just play that back into your business. What are you promising, and how can you make sure that you're continuing to deliver on that promise? This might seem again obvious, but it's where we always start. You really have to dig deep into your company and understand what makes you special and different. I think there's a lot of Me Too businesses, brands and products and services all quite similar. The goal is to tease out and understand what is the thing or things that we can really hold up that make us special and different, and build our positioning and persona around it. So as an example, I've been working with a recruitment agency on the shore. And when you look out at the world of Adecco and Kelly Girl, I mean, there are hundreds of recruitment agencies out there. And so how do you start to be different in that sector? And through the research and interviews that we did with clients, both on the client side and candidate side, what we realized was that it was this combination, not just of the role and the industry that people were recruiting for, it was the culture of the company, had a huge impact on whether a recruitment was successful or not. So we go, okay. Then when we look back into the marketplace, nobody was talking about those three things, role, industry, culture. So we built the positioning around that 3-point connectivity of role, industry and culture. And if you pop down to our stand downstairs, you'll see some of the collateral that we've produced. But it's really helped them elevate their positioning in the marketplace. It's given them a new story to tell, and it's something that resonates with their audience. It's all about finding that thing that makes you special and different and then communicating that out. I think Urgent have done a good job. Talking with the owner, it was a couple of years ago, to be honest. They've been around a while now. They took the view early on that, yes, there's a lot of courier companies out there, but the whole sustainability green conversation was one that they felt passionate about and they felt was the future. So they made a point, even though their price point was slightly more expensive, and there's always this trade-off is how much premium is somebody prepared to pay. So it's slightly more expensive, but the understanding that this service was carbon neutral, something that's carried them through. So whereas a lot of their competitors have been fighting on price, they've stepped away from that conversation and are really talking about the sustainability conversation, the green conversation, and they have gained market share over recent years. So again, we all look to not compete on price, and that has to be a strategy. You know, if we just compete on price, then we're all going to die. It's ridiculous. We have to find those things within the brand, those qualities or attributes that set us apart and enable us to hook our target clients. This might seem obvious, don't go it alone. So as a business owner, I'm imagining most people in this room are business owners, we tend to take a lot of this responsibility and thinking on our own shoulders. It's really important to engage with your team, get them involved in this process and this conversation, get them to understand what's going on with the brand and what's the vision, because it's a bit like being the general when you go over the top of the hill and you think you've got all the privates and everybody else behind you, but in fact you're on your own. You've got to bring them with you. You've got to articulate what the vision is and what the brand's all about and get them to be a part of the process. And that has to happen really early on. Even if there's only 2 or 3 of you, same story. Get everybody singing from the same song sheet. Obviously we're in the world of internet and digital media, and there are really 2 things that are fundamental. And again, this sounds obvious, but I think people can get carried away with the whole Facebook conversation and the Twitter conversation and not have sorted out the basics, because the basics are 1, to be seen, and 2, to be chosen. So be seen is all about how do you get Google to love you? How do you get to be on that first page through the organic ranking? Forget Google AdWords, it's past. That was good 18 months ago, even a year ago. It's finished. Okay, move on. Take the $75 that you've probably been offered as free advertising. They've been basically pushing that out through emails or through brochures, magazines. But where you need to be is on the first page through your organic ranking, and that's basically maximizing Google and using Google Places. And if nobody here knows what that means, then again, come have a chat with me afterwards. I'll give you a few tips. So let's assume that they've found you. That's the be seen. Then we want them to choose you. And the level of cart abandonment is huge. A lot of people leave the website with the cart empty or certainly not closing out the purchase. So looking at the design and the flow through your website and making it engaging is absolutely critical. Do this before you start thinking about other stuff like Facebook and Twitter, because if you haven't got these right, this is where the start point is for the business. Love your customers. Again, it seems obvious, but in this tight climate, it's really important. Basically, our old friend Peter Drucker has been around for years, but he's a really good sounding board when it comes to some of the basics. You have, on average, a 1 in 14 chance, this is empirical data from the States, of doing business with someone new. So basically, I have an opportunity to do business probably with 1 person in this room. You have a 1 in 4 chance of doing business with somebody that you know. So you've had a touch with them, you've spoken to them, or you've maybe worked with them before, but they're cold. but you actually have a 1 in 2 chance of doing business with somebody that you already know. So start by really focusing on your database and selling into your database. So this is less about the brand and more about just getting the basics right. And it is about knowing them intimately. It is about really understanding what makes them tick and finding ways, as I mentioned before, about adding value that's not just price focused, and that regularity of contact. I'm kind of over the whole e-newsletter personally, but maybe that's just me. I get so many emails a day. But do find a way to touch them regularly. Actually, going back old school and sending something through the post has actually become popular again, because we've sort of lost the art of communicating. And something that's really nicely designed, a postcard or a letter, handcrafted, that talks about, we really enjoyed doing business with you. Can we get back together? Sounds a bit simple, but frankly, it works in today's market. And then the other thing is to tailor your offer based on purchase behavior. We're seeing more and more focus on identifying how and why and what somebody has purchased, and then going, okay, if they've bought this particular product, probably based on past experience, they're going to like this product or this service, and then offering that up as a specific deliverable in terms of the marketing and communication for that one thing. So it's tailoring the offer based on past experience. I think you'll see a lot more of this going forward. So in the old days, it was broadcast. We'd send the same message out to everybody. Now we're bringing it right back and going very narrow. Action Mail are not at the Expo today. I'm slightly surprised, because they're a good local company that does a great job of personalising the marketing through direct mail. I'm still actually quite a fan of direct mail when it's personalised. They say statistically that with direct mail you get maybe a 2% response rate. Doesn't sound a lot, but if you personalise it, that at least doubles. It's somewhere between 4 and 6. So suddenly that becomes quite an interesting part of the marketing mix when it's personalised. Third thing, switch my timing. Oh my God. It's about walking in your customer's shoes. And this is about empathy again. The whole brand thing is, do I understand what's going on in my customer's head, and how can I offer my product or service in a way that they're going to get and enjoy? So in the UK, when the recession hit, and in fact they're double dip now, Sainsbury's, one of the major supermarket chains, got Jamie Oliver, and who's a better ambassador basically than Jamie, to come up with a series of menus. Feed a family for £5. This was 2 years ago, and I would say that Countdown have just caught up. You're just seeing over the last 6 months Countdown tailoring their marketing, using the master chef, using the celebrity chefs from a New Zealand perspective anyway, talking about cheap food and healthy food. That's basically recognising that times are still tight, the household budget's tight, so what can Countdown do to empathise with their customers? Same for you, whatever your business or service, what challenges does your customer face, and how can you help them and tailor your products to deliver that? There's never been a better time to think outside the box. I mentioned right at the beginning that me telling you how great I am, forget it. Okay, I'm pretty good. But I think this is probably low now. This again is about a year out of date. When you think about even mobile marketing and texts coming through from Vodafone and spurious people, there are probably more than 3,000 messages a day that we're being bombarded with, whether we're in the car, listening to the radio, the billboards, the TVs. People are just switching off, okay? So your customer base is just switching off to all of that. Only 14% of advertisements are trusted, so you've got this whole issue. Even if you've spent the money on broadcast media, people are going, yeah, well, I don't really believe it anyway. So it's all about what others are saying. So we know that Amazon for quite a while now have had testimonials and commentary on products, even things like Trade Me. You know, who here doesn't worry about their feedback from somebody that they've traded with on Trade Me? Oh, I don't want negative feedback because that's going to affect how people want to trade with me. It's the same thing. It's applying how your customer base talks about you to other people that they can influence. You can't necessarily change it, but what you can do is understand it and make sure that you're thinking about how they're interacting. I'm not going to go through this, but basically McKinsey in the States have come up with a really interesting, for me anyway, as a brand guy, new model around consumer behavior and how people interact with the brand, not just in that pre-purchase stage, but actually afterwards. So people are going online, doing their business, buying the product or service, not really digging down into all that great data and information that we've put on the website. Then after they've bought it, they're going back in to make them feel good about their choice and also to then get a better feel for the product or service that they've then bought. So there's a different business model out there around the marketing and communication that you need to think about as you start to plan out your campaigns. Brand interaction is also huge. So it's about experiencing the brand as a form of entertainment as much as anything else. I'm kind of into shoes, but not as much as my wife, and she loves the site Shoes of Prey, American website, where you can actually custom design your shoes and have them sent to you anywhere in the world. You can pick the bow, the finish, the lining. It's women's heaven, right? I think it's just amazing. But that's all about a couple of things. One, it's about brand engagement, so you can personalize your choice and selection. It's also about brand interaction. People actually want to be involved in interacting with the brand. And has anybody here not seen the Blend Tech video? Anybody not seen it, or does everybody not seen it? Okay, if you go on YouTube and just put "Will it blend?" Okay, it's probably the world's biggest video. Must be, Alan, mustn't it? Where have you been? Where have you been? But basically, I think you'll understand just by seeing it. This was a small company in the States that made top-end food blenders. And it was very niche because they were expensive, but they were industrial grade. And their marketing guy came along and he goes, well, how do we get this brand to be better recognized and just increase our sales? He said, well, what could we blend? And this guy, who is the owner, and he really looks like this, by the way, he's so funny, said, oh, this can blend anything. You go, oh, okay. So I could put a brick in a book? Yeah, you can put... So basically what happened was, on the website, they said, tell us what you want us to blend, and we'll blend it, and then we'll video it. So they had all of these people sending in requests for things to blend. Okay, and the favourite for most people is the iPhone. When it first came out, and he's standing there, and his iPhone's just being blended to dust, and the smoke's coming out. It's probably poisonous. But the whole thing is just fantastic, because what it's saying is, if you buy this blender as a gift, because it's mostly gifting, it will never wear out. You know, it's the best gift you could ever buy as a wedding gift or engagement gift or whatever. And subsequently, the company's just gone through the roof. It's had amazing success. It's become a cult. And you'll see things like Barbie and Ken. That's always quite interesting. All sorts of things. But it's even got T-shirts now. 3 minutes, thank you. My God, 3 minutes. Not good, not good. Okay. The good news is I'm going to run. I've covered this a bit about being focused. So don't take the broadcast. Understand where your key target audiences are. Be focused on them, and focused on your message. Okay? People are time poor. If you talk about things generally, generally about your business, generally about what you do, you can lose people. You want to be really focused and talk about those points of difference. What are the things that this brand is going to do for me? How is it going to help me enjoy, experience, improve, whatever it may be? My background in consulting means that I'm always interested in the whole plan, test and measure thing. I think if you haven't said what you want to achieve and set in place the KPIs and goals to achieve it, how can you actually measure it? So you've got to start with your planning, your testing and your measuring. And the good news with things today is that because generally we're not talking about big media spend, you can afford to take a few risks. You could give something a go, and if it doesn't work, well, okay, you've given it a go, it didn't meet your criteria, move on to the next thing. And you can certainly do that within social media at relatively low cost. We did just take on a client who last year spent $25,000 on Facebook campaign, or Facebook development. The return on investment, absolutely zero. Now, I would argue that they didn't plan that particularly well. Why did they? What were they thinking? What were they doing? They didn't test it before they committed to the money. They did measure it. That was easy. So just be really careful. Think about what you're doing and understand how you can test before you go too far. I'm going to probably forget this. Oh, no, I'll pick out a couple of things. Don't forget to ask your customers. Again, this should have been back in the basics, but using tools like SurveyMonkey, where you can set up a really nice little branded online survey for free, send that out to your database, and just ask a few of the basic questions. Even it's just, what could I do better? Open-ended questions are always fun, because there's some people that would give you a one-liner, then there are others that actually give you a screed of things. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it's free. Always look at your competitors. We're all narrow working in our business all the time. You do have to take the time to step back, look at your competitors. What are they doing? And what can you learn from them and do better? Yep, okay, that'd be good. Very quickly on social media, as I said, I kind of flip-flop in and out of it in terms of how I think it's applicable for business to business. There's no question as a consumer, business to consumer, it has a role. Business to business, it's a different relationship. If you're in professional services, I think LinkedIn is great. I think it's really good. It's worth the small investment to get that working for you. Back in 2009, again, a lot of this was when I was first looking and trying to understand about these new things. Psychotactics said you can't sell with social media. All you can ever hope to do is entice your audience. I'm not totally sure, because now on Facebook you can have your free shopping cart and actually trade through Facebook, and I know people that have done that quite successfully. That's just another channel in terms of e-commerce. But be authentic. You really have to be authentic. And a great example of a stuff-up that probably cost a lot, certainly at the time, was Qantas last year, where they basically they had that huge issue around staff pay and rosters, and they'd laid people off, and it was on strike, and it was in international press. And basically the media company that they were working with decided it was a good time to do a campaign through Twitter, win a luxury first-class travel through Twitter. What happened was people got hold of this, and they couldn't make the connection between a company that seemed to be being really aggressive and negative to its staff, offering free stuff for premier first-class passengers, and Twitter went red hot with negative complaints. So you can't do this, boycott this company, basically closed the whole campaign down in 2 days. And world press, I'm not sure it's true that there's no such thing as bad press, but it certainly made me realise that that whole conversation about consumer power on steroids is really true, and social media means that those messages can be broadcast so quickly. So it's one of those sort of use with caution conversations. last two things. We're in New Zealand. It's a small market. We can't be experts in everything that we do, and it's really important to look at partnerships and alignments that can help you in your business add more value to your customers. There's a couple in the room. Thanks, Labyrinth, for being here. That's great. Our web partners, that we've got a really good alignment relationship. They do some great stuff. The things that we do is slightly different, so coming together and partnering means that together we can offer services to our clients that go that extra mile. And I don't think anybody should be precious about opening up their business to alignments. It's really the only way to do business in New Zealand. Take some risks. Don't spend $25,000 on Facebook unless you're really sure you know what you're doing, and get those basics. Get the basics sorted out first, because that's housekeeping. But be prepared to take a few risks, but know what you can achieve and when to stop. And finally, I'm a great believer in belief. You know, if you don't believe that you can take your company from where it is to where your vision says it can go, then you won't get there. You've got to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. And there are people in the room that can help you, and one of those is going to be talking very soon. That's it. I'll leave you with those two thoughts. One's a pig and one's a gorilla. And the third one is, please, look, put your business card in. Somebody today will win a 3-hour session with me talking about their business and their brand. Talk to me at any point during the rest of the afternoon about your business. Always love to chat. I'm quite food orientated, as you've seen with the cookies, so there's normally a coffee and a cake involved at some stage. I've run over, so I won't do questions. I won't do questions because that's not fair on Nio.
By all means, if you don't mind me just changing the settings, have you got
so,
please just answer questions.
So that was quite a canter through. How was that? Good? Okay.